Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I hope that you are all doing great. In this week's lesson, we're going to look at the topic of architecture through the design and work of Frank Gehry, the world's famous architect. Before we begin our lesson, it is wiser for us to look at what we're going to do for today. In other words, the learning objectives. So there are 4 things that you're going to do today. In this lesson, you will, of course, identify keywords, key terms related to the topic. You are also going to listen for emphasized and checking in phrases. I'm going to talk more about this later in the next slide. And then, since this is listening class, of course, you're going to take notes on the main ideas from the architecture lecture or this lesson. And last but not least, you're going to learn to recognize and practice strategies for acknowledging a point. Actually, in this discussion, this is a discussion strategies. Okay, so during a lecture, you will hear a lot of information quickly, and that is why the lecturers or the teachers often use like signaling words, in other words, emphasized phrases like such as this to focus your attention on the lecture. Also, they are going to use checking in phrases such as the ones which is on your right to see whether you are following along the lecture. So I want to give you an example of how I use these phrases. For example, like this part here. It is important for you to understand that these phrases are not only important for listening part. It is also important for speaking as well, especially when you are giving a presentation. So in a few weeks' time, when a presentation topic is assigned to you, I encourage you to use these phrases. And please remember not to just merely read your notes from the slides. You also need to explain in your own words about that, right? Okay. Now, throughout this lesson, I want you to take notes on what I'm going to teach. As I teach, you're going to take notes, and your outline should look like this. Please pay attention on the signaling words that I already taught you earlier in the previous slides. As I teach, I'm going to mention the 3 principles of Vitruvius. I think you don't know what this is. You're going to know about this later on. I'm also going to explain to you about the features of Gehry's style, examples of his work, and the reasons why he developed his styles. All right. Now, I want to relate the topic to your real-life experience. I'm pretty sure that before the pandemic, all of us did a lot of traveling. And I also hear that a lot of people love to visit historical places. I want to take you back in time. I'm pretty sure that you do recognize a building or 2 that you really like. So let me ask you these questions. What is your favorite building? It can be modern and it can be old as well. And why do you like the structure of the building? And also, what are some current trends in the designs of buildings? What I mean by this is that ask yourself this question: is this building sustainable, in other words, environmentally friendly? Or what about the space? Is this building large or small, or is this building installed with technology? So ask yourself these questions and reflect. And I'm going to show you, this is one of my favorite buildings. Do you recognize this building? It is St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. I went there like 6 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. What I like about this building is the structures full of, I don't know how to describe in words, like exquisite art with also polished sculptures. So think about that as you see my favorite building, and then share your answers in Edmodo, because I'm going to post these questions there. Okay, now let's analyze this building. Think about this building in terms of what kind of aspects you like or dislike about this building. Think about the color, think about the shape, and also what about the function of this building? In other words, what is this building used for? Now, it may look like a hospital or a school, right? So I will tell you about this building later on. And what about the features of this building? Do you think that it's going to last for a long time? Or is it safe for people to be there? By the way, this is the Child Development Center in Canada. Now, what about these two buildings? They look similar. So it must have been designed by the same architect, right? So ask yourself about the aspects, function, and the features of the buildings. For your information, the one on your left is the Weizmann Art Museum, and this one is Guggenheim Museum in Spain. Now let's look deeper into what architecture is. It is understood that the architecture is a combination of science and art. Some architects also think that architecture is a combination of philosophy as well. The philosophical aspect would answer the questions as to why an architect designed the way he designed. So these architects use science to make a building strong, and they use art to make it look beautiful. In other words, they think about the aesthetic or artistic value of the building. Now I want to mention about Vitruvius. Now, who Vitruvius was? He was a Roman architect, and he lived in the 1st century before the Common Era. He wrote an idea about 2,000 years ago. He said that a building should have these fundamental characteristics. And what are they? We're going to look at it, one by one now. He said that a building should meet an intended use, meaning functional. For example, an intended use of school is to learn. So an architect must think about the best style to design for both teachers and the students. Also, a building should be what we call it structurally sound. In other words, it should be strong. So the architects must ask these questions, like, is it safe, or is this building strong in terms like, is it going to protect people from the bad weather? And of course, a building should be beautiful. Now, when we talk about having an aesthetic value, it's quite difficult because people have different tastes, right? So let's say a building which was built 50 years ago might not be beautiful now. So the architects must know the trend, current trend of building or designing a building. Now, I want to shift to talk about Frank Gehry, because this whole topic is based on him. So who is he? He is a Canadian-born architect, and later on he became an American citizen. He is known for his dynamic, distinct style, and other architects describe his style as firstly resourceful. Now, what I mean by resourceful is that he used materials that are easily available. I will talk about that later in the next slide. His style is also described as playful, meaning that he often uses bold colors like gold or pink or blue, you know, as you can see from the previous slides, the buildings that he designed. Also, his style can be described as innovative, meaning that he always pushes the other architects to think about new ideas, new styles, and also most of his buildings, I can say that they have kind of like irregular angles, meaning not a straight wall, you know? Okay, so what I mean by resourceful, as I said to you, so these are the simple materials used by this architect. You know all these materials. There are commonly used in, for example, this one, fence, chain link fence. You've seen this one before. Plywood and sheet metal. I think you have seen this one. Usually, maybe if you take a lot of public transportations, you can see on the floor they use sheet metal. There are a lot of, dozens of his designs. So if you are so interested in his design, you can just Google like I did, you know. These are some of his designs. There are many that I can't really put on one slide. So just Google his name and the examples of the buildings will be available for you to look at. Now, why did he develop such distinct style? He once said that he thinks like an artist. For him, all buildings are like a sculpture of an art. He also pushes the limits of what is structurally possible, meaning that, as I said to you earlier, most of his designs have like irregular angles. And he said that a building is a sculpture that people interact with, meaning that if people didn't really appreciate a building, he thinks that he would fail his objective. Now, most of the time I use these words or this vocabulary to explain about the lesson, the topic of the lesson. The first one, aesthetics, as you know, it means artistic value. But we're going to have a look at it, how you use these words in sentences. The first one, architects consider the aesthetics of the building they design. They want people to find the building not only beautiful to look at, but also enjoyable to be inside. And of course, aesthetics means artistic value. Number 2, the architect Frank Gehry is inspirational. He pushes other architects to explore new ideas. So inspirational, as you can see here, means causing someone to do something or to produce something. And number 3, the foundation of architecture today is based on the fundamentals of the past. Foundation means the basis, the idea to support something. Now, nowadays, people, or architects in particular, they use Vitruvius principles, the 3 principles that we talked about, as the foundation of architecture. Number 4, to say a building is structurally sound means that it is built to last for a long time. So sound here means strong or in good condition. And number 5, the intended use, we talked about this earlier, or purpose of a mall is a place to shop. So it means reason. Number 6, aesthetics is a difficult principle to agree on because people have their own taste. So principle means rule or set of ideas. Now your outline of note-taking should look like this. So I use abbreviation, as you can see here. People, like PPL, people, and all these things from the lesson that I was giving to you earlier. Now, the last part for this lesson is we're going to look at the discussion strategies. You know that when you discuss something with your friends, there may be 1 or 2 people who might disagree with you, or you might disagree with them. So the basic phrases that you often use are like, I disagree with you, no, I don't think so, etc. Now there are ways for you to also point out about your disagreement. For example, these words like phrases, I wouldn't say that. Okay, that is to express disagreement in a polite manner. Also, you can say, I mean, I hate to disagree, but, and then you fill in the blanks with your point of view. Also, you can ask questions. Let's say you disagree or he disagrees with you. You can ask him or her questions like, okay then, so what would you say about this? And can you say that he's blah blah blah? So try to know if he or she disagrees with you. You want to know what is his or her ideas is, right? Okay, and now what I mean by acknowledging a point is that, like, when somebody said something and you disagree, there may be a part of that statement or the idea that your friend is giving that you agree 50% of it. So you can say, okay, sure, I can see that, but, and you fill in the blanks, right? So for those of you who, let me give you an example. For those of you who love probably Beşiktaş or Galatasaray football team. Now I'm going to say that I can see that Beşiktaş team always won Turkish Cup or Championship League. But I still think that Fenerbahçe is the best. Something like that. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is you're going to have a look at a video of how students discuss about this topic, and you also have to pay attention on how they discuss and disagree with one another, and answer this question: what does the student mean by Frank Gehry enthusiast? What does it mean by that? All right, so are you ready to watch this video? Let's start.
You know, Frank Gehry's work is so cool. All those wild shapes and strange angles, that guy's gonna go into the history book as one of the greatest architects ever.
I mean, I can see why you'd say that. His buildings are distinct, but in my opinion, he'll be forgotten by history.
Huh?
Well, I mean, his work's like bubblegum. You chew it for 20 minutes, and then you're bored with it.
What? I wouldn't say that. Maybe his work might not excite you, but his buildings can be found all over the world. And, I mean, come on, they're unlike anything else.
I mean, I hate to disagree, but to me, different doesn't mean good.
Okay, then what would you say about his engineering abilities? Can you say he's noteworthy for that?
Okay, sure, I can see that. But then why doesn't he put those abilities to use in a more practical way, like building bridges?
Okay, Mike, so you're the traditionalist.
Okay, I mean, to tell you the truth, I'm not too crazy about his work either. But I think his, I don't know how to say it, resourcefulness is inspiring. I mean, to use old building materials, chain link fence, and plywood, it's so much better than throwing it away.
So here's our environmentalist.
Okay, well then what about you two? What are you? I mean, are you traditionalists, modernists, or what?
I don't know. What are we?
I don't know, I guess you could just call us Frank Gehry enthusiasts.
Maybe you guys should start a fan club.
Maybe we will.
Okay, so you can see there are probably one guy disagreed with 3 of the other students. And these are the examples of how you disagree with somebody, not just by using simple phrases like, oh, I disagree with you, no, I don't think so. You use all these things, right? Now, what does it mean, this lady, you know, the female student, the last one who's talking, she said that probably we are the Frank Gehry enthusiasts. What does it mean by that? So, if you like something or someone, or for example, yeah, you are also like fans of somebody or something, you can also use enthusiast. Okay, now it's your turn to do some kind of practice. Let's have a look at this question. Some say that Frank Gehry doesn't pay enough attention to the environment or social relationships. Would you agree with this criticism? Now, in order for you to understand what does it mean by social relationships, why do social relationship has got to do with Frank Gehry, the architect, the architecture, right? Topic. So what I want you to do is I want you to watch this TED Talk by Jean Gang and compare, she's also an architect, compare her idea and Gehry's idea or style, and then use the discussion strategies that you have learned to answer the question of this part. We're going to do this practice tomorrow on Zoom. So I guess that's all for today, and stay safe.